Good morning. It's a lovely day out here on the mooring ball. Expecting a mostly wind event this evening starting around 7. So we're gonna have to be battening down all the hatches and securing everything. It's supposed to be over 30 knot winds, so we'll see. It's very calm out this morning. So I had been watching on Predict Wind for a couple of days. They had been saying that there's a wind event that was going to happen on Friday, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And sure enough, it was predicting that a north front was going to push in, and following it, it was going to be, up to around 30 knot winds. It's been pretty dang accurate. So, we did what we thought we needed to do to secure our boat, made sure that, we doubled up our lines.
Sure enough, Predict Wind said 7 p.m. and 7:10, we got the wind. Earlier in the week, we had run into some people on the dock, and they introduced us to the Facebook group for the mooring field, so we were getting updates. They even mentioned, make sure today when it's slack tide to check your lines, make sure they're not wrapped around your mooring ball. That can be an issue.
So later on that night, I looked out and I see a Coast Guard boat coming through the mooring field, blue lights on. They're traveling kind of slow, like looking for something. So we didn't have our channel 16 on the radio, so I yelled down and asked Sarah to check Facebook and see if anybody was saying anything.
And at that point, all there was possibly people in the water. The Coast Guard was out for that issue, which was totally separate. And then shortly thereafter, we started hearing horns blowing, and so I checked again, and there was a notification that there was a trawler loose, unmanned.
So we went up on deck, and sure enough, we could see the spotlights. Spotlights were shooting back at us, kind of like on strobe setting, warning us that this trawler was coming at us. Because we're on the far side of the mooring field on the southern side, so we've got nearly 100 and something boats to the north of us, and it just so happened to break free and travel right down the line. So I went up forward and rigged the anchor, readied the anchor to let go just in case it snapped our lines. It was already kind of pre-staged to drop, but I went ahead and faked out a little bit of the chain so that it was more readily accessible in case we did snap our line or the trawler crash into us. And luckily all the guys and gals from the mooring field went out there on their dinghies, and somebody was able to get a anchor over on the trawler that was loose. And as it was approaching us, the guy in front of us, he's got a steel boat. It stopped. It hung up on a mooring ball and stopped literally feet from crashing into his boat, and it was holding there. So, crisis averted for the time being, as long as that anchor held and everything. Our neighbor jumped in his boat to go help, and I watched his boat as he took off to go help. A gust of wind hit his flats boat, and it literally almost pitch poled it or, you know, flipped it over, because the gusts were over 30 knots. Sustained winds were about 30-ish, and gusts were well over 30. So
it was pretty dangerous to be out on a dinghy. We chose not to.
Yeah, I didn't think that me leaving our boat, you know, with Sarah, 2 dogs, a cat, you know, it wouldn't be right for me to leave and then something happened and we break free and now I'm out. So I opted to stay with our boat, you know, and just, you know, in case we had fenders, if we needed to, you know, possibly fend it off or anything like that, we could do that. So
we were on standby. Kudos to all those other dinghies that were out there, but
yeah, they pretty much saved the day on that. And when that hung up, everybody thought it was kind of, everybody let their guard down. Sure enough, it was moments later that word came across. People were yelling and 40-knot winds. You could barely hear them, but they were screaming, you know, here comes another one. And sure enough, it was a larger, much larger trawler.
Got a big ass boat coming towards Peanut Island. Penalty and retriever. Over, do you copy? Yes.
Coast Guard, this is Sailing Vessel Searshed. The boat they're reporting that has broken loose in the north end of the field is a different trawler than the one that broke loose earlier.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's a totally separate boat. It's heading right for our neighbor.
And the dinghy guys and gals were able to push it over onto the shoal, got it up onto the shoal. It's about 20 yards, kind of to the east of us. And that was fine for the time being. That boat didn't have an anchor on it, so it beached up there and the wind was kind of holding it against that shoal over there.
At that point, a towboat had come out and was helping out.
Alright, you think they'll get it? You think they'll get it? Yeah. Away from it. Thanks, Travis.
What do they do with them? Do they take them in or do they anchor
Over there onto the roll.
them? Really? Coast Guard came and checked out the situation, but they went back out. I don't know if it was because they still had people in the water in another situation,
Yeah,
but I think the dinghies did most of the work.
the dinghies did it. But, you know, going back to predict wind, I had played through predict winds, you know, 3 days of wind data, and it was saying that before first light, like around 4 o'clock, the wind was going to start shifting from the north to come out of the east. And if that was going to happen, then that trawler that was up on the shoal was being kind of held by the north wind, and the east wind would push it basically straight back at us again. And it was coming right at us also. It was further up in the mooring field. Luckily they were able to get an anchor out, get it stopped. But, you know, it was a long night. Long, windy, the boat was rocking pretty severe. You know, we were just kind of hunkered down you know, anticipating whatever could possibly happen.
Yeah, at that point, you kind of have to just let it go, because nobody wants to take liability for those boats. So they did what they could as far as anchoring or grounding it, and you wait and see.
Yeah, I got up right before the sun came up, and sure enough, just like PredictWind had said, you know, the wind had shifted and was blowing out of the east. I looked out the portal and I saw the trawler, turned around, stirred my coffee for a minute, turned back around, and the trawler was gone. It was heading back toward another guy that we know, Rocco, and his boat. So I didn't have Rocco's number. I called John. John called Rocco. Rocco was able to get his engine started and steered out of the way of this approaching trawler, and it was literally like feet. So it was a pretty awesome, you know, move by Rocco. The boat drifted on back and wound up. They had contacted the Coast Guard, and Coast Guard came out. They were looking at it. They just basically watched it beach itself up on Trumbo on the military base at the seaplane hangar, the ramp there, and that's where it sits. Yeah, week and a half. It's still setting almost to the point of capsizing.
Well, there was some concern whether it was the mooring balls that failed. Turns out they were still intact. Again, I think it was, you know, that slack tide during the day. Their lines got wrapped up around the ball and broke free. Jeff, why'd the chicken cross the road?
Why?
I don't know. She wanted to hang out. What's up, dude? Have you ever heard that fish can only grow based on the size of the fish tank that they're confined to? I'm Sarah and this is Jeff. We gave up a modest house with a small saltwater pool for a much larger salty terrain with an infinite amount of personal growth in mind. As poet Linda Ellis says, it's up to us to take responsibility for what we can pack into the dash on our tombstones between our birth date and dying day. Watch us prepare for the worst, but hope and live for the best while we can. Thanks for watching this episode of Where We Are At. Subscribe to follow us where we go on our refit sailing vessel, the Dash, at Aquaterra Gypsy Odyssey, aka at Go. Oh my god, I'm so excited, Jeffrey. We're underway. We're underway for the first time.